Well, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Patrick O'Mara. Patrick has 40 years or so experience working in the horticultural industry. He's been a practicing tree care person for 35 years, climber for over 30 years, business owner for over 25 years, certified arborist for over 20 years, and a certified tree climber for over 15 years. His favorite tree is the Western Catalpa. And his favorite task in the tree care industry is doing end weight reductions, where he can do long limb walks and proper cuts, and can rest assured that his local trees have a better chance of surviving the next big off-season storm in snowy Denver, Colorado, his hometown. Now, that's all his official stuff. Unofficially, I'm here to tell you that this is one of the nicest and most giving people you will meet. He is always giving of his time, energy, and knowledge to the community and the industry, and he's just a real peach of a guy. So, Patrick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Jordan. I fell out of a tree. I was the safest climbing arborist I knew, and I fell out of a tree. I broke myself up pretty badly, had a number of surgeries, did a lot of physical therapy, had a lot of emotional therapy. Along the way, I got an amazing amount of support from my family and friends, my local and regional arborist communities, but I also found a surprising and beautiful amount of support from the international tree climbing community. I believe it was that combination of their love and help that allowed me to recover so thoroughly from this accident. I'm back working every week as a climbing arborist, which is the best job I've ever had. I continue to compete in regional climbing competitions and championships, and I volunteer for the tree climbing events like the ITCC, which is the International Tree Climbing Championship. I'm back in part because of you all. And I want to tell you the story of my journey. Is that fair? Okay, a couple of things. First and foremost, man, it's easy for me to cry. My emotions are right here all the time. And when I think of all the people who helped me along the way, it triggers that response frequently. When I was preparing for this talk, I asked Alexa if New Mexico men tend to show their emotions outwardly. She laughed and she said that if they're happy or mad, they do. But if it's about them being sad, she said, no way, bro. So if you feel uncomfortable with my crying, just brush it off. It won't last long, and I can't really control it, I feel like, anyway. And I think it would probably be a good idea to have a safe word. So if I start to feel those emotions on, I'll give you a safe word. Any suggestions?
Stand clear.
Stand clear. I will do stand clear. So if you hear that, you know what to expect. Thank you. Second of all, I've developed a tremor in my hand. I've got Parkinson's in my family, so I met with a neurologist and found out last October that I do indeed have Parkinson's. It is distracting to me. It's really distracting to have no control over your hand like that, and it's probably going to be to you all as well. So if you see me up here doing hand manipulations, moving it around, whatnot, I'm just trying to mitigate that tremor. I'll try to have a little fun with it. Hey, shaka, brah. Yeah. Just letting you know about that. And third, here's a quick introduction to me. My name is Patrick O'Mara, and I live in the United States. I did this in New Zealand for the world audience, and this is how I described Colorado. So you native New Mexicans might have an issue with this. I said, I live in the United States, in Denver, Colorado, which is where the best mountains and skiing are in all of the U.S. The guy from Taos over there, he's like, no, it's not. I'm an ISA certified arborist, certified tree climber. I was track qualified for the past 5 years. As the president of the ISA Rocky Mountain chapter, current board member since 2019, and I've been learning, pruning, climbing, and teaching trees for 38 of my 55 years here on Earth. As I look out in the audience, I recognize and know quite a few people from this industry who have all of that and much more. And it makes it obvious that we're all here for the same reason, and that's that we love trees. So thank you for coming to this talk that centers on something that we all love. Let's get into the accident. I've been a tree climber for 3+ decades, so you can imagine the state that many parts of my body are in. In September and December of 2020, I qualified for 2 surgeries to completely replace my failing knees. I ended up having bilateral total knee replacements. The surgeries went well, and though I struggled at first, my physical therapy got me back on my feet and allowed me to finally get back to doing what I love doing, which is climbing trees. And in mid-February 2021, February 18th, I saw on social media that a renowned climber, Chris Coates, was in town and wanted to get together with local climbers for a recreational tree climb. Although I had only climbed a handful of trees by then after my surgeries, I was so excited that I could join a crew of climbers, a number of whom have competed internationally, and most of whom I've climbed with before, and I was here with them on this recreational tree climb. But realistically, I wanted to show off my new knees. Our tree that day was a nice-sized cottonwood, Populus deltoides, in the middle of Denver. It was a typical February day, or a usual February day, not like this year. So it was sunny, but cold enough that during the day the tree still had snow sticking to it. As contracting arborists in Denver who worked throughout the winter, we were used to it, so it wasn't a big deal to have that snow in the tree. We set our lines, set our hammocks, and spent the afternoon laughing, swapping stories, and talking shop. My new knees worked great. I was back, and I was elated. And that's when disaster struck. It started getting late, definitely getting cold, and it was time to descend. I was on this gets a little technical, climbers will understand this. I was on a twin rope SRS system with an akimbo on a ground retrievable canopy anchor on one side of the tree and a rope runner on a non-retrievable canopy anchor on the other. Without going into too much detail, I had taken down the hammock on one of the sides of the tree and then traversed over to the other side, the side that held my runner. I didn't realize how quickly my body would fatigue, but after nearly 5 months of being away from the game, my muscles weren't even close to operating at full capacity. I had also gained some weight after the surgeries and throughout the holidays, and my desire to show off my new knees and my rad climbing skills to this group of people too soon was catching up with me, and I started to make mistakes. I climbed with 2 lanyards, but lanyarded in with my upper Ds instead of my lower Ds because my right hand could access that snap better. It's a little lazy on my part. As I hung from them, using cold hands to fumble through untying my canopy anchor, I started feeling the discomfort that you feel when you're suspended from them. It's a different type of feel. I started breathing faster, kind of pre-panic. I reached back to grab a carabiner, make a quick fisherman's, and attach it to my harness to make an MRS setup and lower myself back down on the runner. But I didn't find that carabiner. I had not been climbing as much, so I didn't have the organization on my harness that I should have. What I did find was a DMM revolver, and in my haste, I foolishly attached a plan to run my rope through this device without tying a fisherman's and then hold it while I let slack out of the line. At that point, I pretty much was in panic mode, and I didn't think my now very cold hands could make the knot anyway. My fallback at that point was that I knew that if this all failed, I had a great open space to swing into, and I had a second line. I had that second line, and I was just on it. I pulled all my weight into my runner system, and because it held, I felt confident that I could remove my lanyard, which I did, and even stowed it, so that's good housekeeping. But when I went to release my runner, my cold, fatigued left hand couldn't hold my rope anymore, and it slipped through. And it released me from the tree. Stand clear. I was 40 feet, all clear. I was 40 feet up, and I started to fall. As I fell, I wasn't panicked. I'm a tree climber. I know that you trust your gear if you're a tree climber. I remember even feeling relaxed as I waited for that second line to engage and send me on what was probably going to be a pretty fun, though uncontrolled swing. But what I hadn't realized that was I was focusing on untying my runner. My akimbo got caught up in my carry tool. This is what we use to carry chainsaws. It was on my side, and my akimbo got caught up in that carry tool, and it held it in the wide open position. It was collapsed. Any akimbo users out there? Yeah, when you collapse it, it doesn't hold the rope at all. The device is now in the wide open position, doesn't hold the line at all, and it stayed open until I impacted the cold, hard ground. My friends Jackie, Fink, and Kevin Oxley were the first ones to realize what happened. Stand clear. Because they were just a couple of feet away from me when I hit, I almost landed on them and will eternally be sorry for making them listen to the sound of my bones and my body breaking. Anyway, I train aerial rescue with Ox, who's competed at the ITCC and North Americans, and my God, that man jumped into action, did exactly what you're supposed to in a situation like that. He alerted everyone that there's been an accident. He immediately called 911, and it was actually calming for me to hear his voice because we had trained so much together, and he was saying the same words that we had said when I wasn't injured. He directed the rescue and gave tasks to everyone. You make sure no one comes in here. You go up the road and flag down the paramedics. You get a light over here, and Patrick, don't you fucking move. Because we were downtown, the ambulance got there immediately, and the next thing I knew, I ended up here in the emergency room at Denver Health Hospital. The fall had snapped my left ankle. I landed up upright as if I were rappelling, and in retrospect, that probably helped minimize the damage. I was also wearing some stout mountaineering boots, so I'm sure that helped too. When I landed, though, my left arm snapped over my knee when I came down, breaking it. My right leg sustained a pylon fracture, and my foot was pretty decently dislocated. This is the picture my wife took. Stand clear. The moment that the ER doc snapped my foot back into place, and you can ask me later about my experience with ketamine. I woke up the next morning, and that was my new reality, and all of the uncertainty that comes with a broken arm, broken chest, broken legs. On a total happy side note, this is me on the third day in the hospital, and I was excited to take my first shower, and what I didn't realize was that I was about to start the fashion trend of 2021, and I'm sure that all of you wore the pants that I inspired. We're gonna go back to that, and we're gonna go back to this.
You wore it better.
I have no idea where I found that picture, but that was perfect. So that's me getting injured. That's me in the hospital. That's the story of my accident. Cut and dried, just the facts about what happened. And this, for me, is where things get tricky. Because the surgeries were completed, the stitches were in, my skin was starting to knit back together, and both my feet were facing the same direction. The physical healing was well on its way, but as in any traumatic accident or incident, there are many layers to that healing. It's not just, I'll drink some extra milk and heal those bones up right away. You don't have milk that you can take for your brain. There's the incredible amount of emotional trauma that goes with it, and the healing from it was about to kick into high gear. Stand clear. My amazing wife, Heather, got me home from the hospital a few days after the accident. And as we pulled up into the house, my tears flowed again as I saw our two close friends. They were just finishing up the wheelchair ramps that they had built throughout my entire house for me. It was part shame that I had put myself into this predicament, and absolute gratitude for what they had just done for me. Jay and Ross, thank you. And that same year, I was excited about this, and that same year in December of 2021, I was able to return the favor and install the ramps at a friend's house who desperately needed them too. Oh, it's a big stand clear here, sorry. When we got into the house, I found our living room had been transformed. The 1,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies that my daughter was selling were gone, courtesy of Melissa, the troop leader, who had gotten all the girls together to sell every last box of Girl Scout cookies that my daughter had, because she didn't need to be doing that at that time. Thank you, Melissa. The furniture was moved, and my childhood friend who had a rental company had his guys install a hospital bed, which was my new home for the following 6 weeks. Thank you, Matt. The bed was littered with cards and flowers from so many friends, near and far, who knew I was hurting and wanted to do something to let me know that they were thinking about me and our family. Thank you, friends. And our trusty, loving dog, Roxy, was right there lying faithfully by my bed. She truly was the best dog ever. And 2 weeks after this accident, she died at the side of the bed. And for that gut punch, universe, I have you to thank. For this talk, I really wanted to spend the entire time talking about the incredible things that my wife, my kids, my family and friends, Josie and Finn, what they did for me and my family. I wanted to talk more about the meal train that they formed that fed our family at dinner for months. Stand clear. I want to talk about my sister Shannon, who left her family to come down to her big brother's house and wash his broken feet as a sign of sisterly love. The friends who stopped by to visit and raise my spirits, the Kevins and the Devons and the Steves and the Scotts and the Armandos and the Keiths, fellow arborists who knew that I would rather be climbing that big gnarly elm down the street than sitting at home in a wheelchair. But most of them are not arborists, and many of you are, so I'll spend the rest of my time talking about our extended arborist family and the sublime ways that I was touched by you all. I believe that in a personal accident like this, the first step to emotional recovery is to accept the personal blame that you deserve. You need to own your own mistakes, and in the middle of all this turmoil, that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel right, but it's what needs to happen. The day after my accident, in a post about my accident on one of my social media arborist forums, I posted the requisite pictures of me in the ER with my C-collar and my broken parts. I explained the accident and placed the blame on the climbing gear. It's failure. I explained that if I hadn't been using that akimbo and that care tool, that this accident would not have happened. And though I got the obvious sympathy replies that I was looking for, one message stood out. An internationally known and respected climber named Paul Didier, who works out of the small Caribbean island of Barbados and who I was friends with online, reached out in the group chat. He too expressed sympathy, but continued with one sentence that haunted me. He said, "You know, bruv, this accident was your fault." Ugh, I hated to hear that. No, it wasn't. I'm the safest climber I know. It's the gear's fault. He went on to remind me of the very obvious cardinal rule of climbing. If you're going to be switching ropes, make sure you fully weight your system before you rely on it to hold up your life. I hadn't, and it cost me immensely. And I can do all the reasons, all the excuses why, that the rope slipped, I had cold hands, and my muscles weren't ready, and blah, blah, blah. The accident was my fault. But what this did for me, by him pointing that out in less than 24 hours, was amazing. There was no external thing that I could blame this on. They need to improve their thing. I have no control over how badly they made their product. But his words forced me to realize the one thing, that it was my fault and I needed to work on my product. That saddened me unbelievably, but it set the tone for my recovery starting day one. And it allowed me the mentality that if I was going to get better, it was going to be me fighting to improve myself. For that, Paul Didier from Barbados, I thank you. I believe that in any accident, one of the crucial steps is to determine how the accident happens. One particular arborist was key to me understanding how it all went down, and that was my climbing partner for the past 17 years, Devin Austin. He wasn't on the climb that night with us, but he knew me intimately as a climber. He asked if he could come over to see me one night, about a week after the accident, and I agreed. My wife made a wonderful meal for us, so we shared light conversation throughout the dinner. But after dinner, we retired to the living room, and the talk got real. He wanted to learn how it all went down so he and I could better understand it. Using the legs of the dinner table to represent the tree branches, we completely reconstructed the accident. We used the exact gear that my friends had painstakingly, carefully removed from the tree and returned to me. And if you can imagine, there were a lot of tears as I felt the immediate PTSD of the accident, especially when we got to the point that the rope slipped out of my hands and I fell. From that night and for the next month, I would wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of my rope whizzing through the device until I impacted the ground again and again and again, and wake up in a pile of sweat. But doing that helped solidify my understanding again that it was my fault. And it solidified my resolve to never have something like that happen to me again. And if I could spread the word of that, that hopefully that would never happen to anyone else ever again too. For that, Devin, I'm eternally grateful. All right, next up. One of the steps to my emotional recovery dealt with not only my return to mobility, but my return to work. It sounds dumb, but I knew I was going to be in a wheelchair for 6 weeks. And I didn't know if I was ever going to walk again. I mean, it's only broken bones, right? So I should be fine. But what about work? Would I be able to get back to doing the thing that I love, which is climbing trees? God, that scared me, having those doubts and thinking that maybe I'd never climb again, too. A couple of weeks, this will stand clear. A couple of weeks after my accident, the doorbell rang and it was the FedEx guy who had just dropped something off. My wife was home, went outside, and got a large package addressed to me. I wasn't expecting anything, so it was a surprise. My wife went back to doing what she was doing, but because I was unusually quiet, she paused a bit later to check on me, and she found me lying in bed, like usual, but in a puddle of tears, too. Oh, baby, what happened? I had opened the package and found inside a brand new climbing rope from a guy on the other side of the U.S. named Brandon Steedman. I was friends with him online, too, and he had reached out to me earlier with well wishes, which I appreciated. But what he followed up with was this package. Besides this new rope, he included a note that simply said, "Dear Patrick, this rope is for you for when you return to climbing trees. Much love, Brandon." The message that sent me was amazing. I don't think Brandon could even imagine how much hope that gave me as I lay there in a big mess of broken bones. He was telling me that he knew I'd heal, he knew I'd walk again, and he knew that, goddammit, I was going to climb those trees again. That one simple act brought the incredible amount of resolve I found to prove him right that I was going to climb again. And since that day, and since I started climbing trees again, I've used that rope in almost every class that I've taught, every training I've been involved in, every aerial rescue that I've put on. And that's including this last year, where we put on a tree climbing clinic and an aerial rescue clinic in the tree that I fell out of. And it was an amazing experience. And it was as cathartic as that can be. But my God, that was difficult. He gave me the hope that I needed. And for that, Brandon, I'm eternally grateful. Fast forward, at the end of my 6 long weeks in a wheelchair, I was able to walk out of the hospital, albeit in special booties that I'd wear for the next several weeks. And show of hands, who thinks I cried when I walked out of the hospital? Yeah, I'm not going to show you that video. As the weeks went on, my pain continued to lessen, my muscles woke up and got stronger. And on April 26, 2021, I triumphantly got back up into the trees again. It was with the help of my good friend Scott Smith. I was fat, but I was happy. I climbed and I pruned a spruce, knowing that if I fell, I was just going to plinko my way down and not just straight up fall. For some reason, that felt good to me. I felt good. 1 tree down, and many more to come. I started counting the trees that I climbed. Tree number 2, tree number 5, tree number 20. Devin was there for almost every single one of them, and eventually I stopped counting. But that doubt lingered. Sure, I was climbing, but it was with 1 or 2 people, and I felt a need for acceptance from, or maybe to prove something to, the climbing community. I continued to find other climbers for recreational tree climbs. I volunteered for a wonderful nationwide event called Saluting Branches. It's heavily supported by my friend Carrie Tauscher here, seen with Brick Riley, who is another amazing, inspirational, profoundly deaf climber who also has competed at the international level. He was also with us last year as our invited guest at the Progreen Expo in Denver. This picture is when we first met at a very special event called the North American Open Masters in Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia. It was created by Chris Coates, the man who I was with on the bad climb, who graciously allowed me to be a part of the festivities, including our attempt to set the world record for the most tree climbers ever in hammocks in 1 tree. It was an enormous beach, and we got 82 of us in hammocks in that tree. In order to get registered, we, in the tree, one by one, had to yell out our name. When it came time for me to say my name, the response from that crowd of climbers was overwhelming. Now, most of them knew my story and knew how special it was for me to be up amongst them. It was their cheers and my tears, but it was amazing. I also reached out to 2 of my favorite people in the world, Bear and Melissa Levangie Ingersoll, to volunteer to help up their glass ceiling shattering women's tree climbing workshop. The workshop is packed with world-class instructors like ITCC champions Krista Strading and Alex Julius, as well as ITCC alums Bear and Melissa, and Roxy Seibel and Maria Tranguch, Sydney Huzinski-Huber, Wendy Lee, Star Quintero, and Nicole Carney-Benjamin. And since my accident, I've been able to climb with many of them, and the confidence that helped restore me was incredible. I kept having these amazing experiences with people who had competed at the ITCC. So in 2022, I decided that after 52 years of not going to the ITCC, that it was time. I went to Copenhagen for the 2022 ITCC, and for the first time I got to see my chapter's perennial champion, Luke Glines, compete at the ITCC. And the gal you see here won her way to the ITCC in Albuquerque. This guy's 13th time that he had been there, and that mother scratcher is older than me. What an inspiration for me to see someone continue to compete at that high of a level. I also got to work alongside Jeff Meyer and Mike Tilford and Craig Bachman, who are Rocky Mountain region climbing arborists who have dedicated an amazing amount of time to teaching and volunteering for things like this. And here they are doing it on another continent and in important roles. And I got to watch my girl Jackie Fink, who was on that faithful accident climb and compete in her very first ITCC ever. I was awed by the competitors' superhuman ability to dance through the trees, by their sheer strength and incredible accuracy. It was the first time I had seen so many of these tree heroes in one place, but I gained some new heroes as well. If you're into climbing, you know this is Lawrence Schultz. I met Bull Hammerstrand, Seifel and Yuchi. I worked alongside this German guy from Switzerland. This is a pat yourself on the back machine that he made for climbers to gain confidence when they went into the ring. He won the Spirit of the Competition award with his infectious positivity. He was a wonderful mentor. I watched Jess Hamer absolutely crush the Ascent event. I saw and was astonished to watch Jo Hedger climb and earn her 5th world championship title. And then witnessed some guy Barton win and drink a beer out of his shoe. But I also watched as one of my American favorites, James Earhart, put on an incredible performance in the Masters, probably one of the best that I've ever seen. And with 30 seconds left, I saw him descend rapidly and make a rare mistake, one that cost him first place, the World Championship. And my hero DQ'd when he broke a really big branch. James, I'm sorry that if that brings up a bad memory for you, but the way he handled himself afterward set one of the best examples I've ever witnessed in how to compose yourself and act when something bad has happened. In defeat, he proved himself to be every last bit of the champion he is, and it really helped guide a little more of my recovery. Copenhagen was followed by Albuquerque in 2023. That's my home region, the ISA Rocky Mountain chapter. I was on the board, and we've been planning that one since 2019, interrupted by 2020, and now all these tree heroes were in my backyard. Shout out to that phenomenal group of Rocky Mountain chapter leaders and volunteers who dedicated a huge amount of time and energy to put on the world's largest tree show. Thank you, Jordan Veers, for participating in that. Thank you, Ann Beard, for making that all happen here. That was amazing. Thank you to the Danas. Thank you to Tara and to Kelly. Thank you for, this is here at Think Trees. Thank you to Natalie and to Nick. Thanks, Ryan. And thank you, Caitlin. I got to work with Didge here and Alex Laver, consummate professionals. I set up the throw line that year and then watched as a course that I helped set up crush the souls of so many of those climbers. But I also met a climber from Japan, Naori Ota. And I heard of the struggles that this single mother of two went through to not only train for the world's largest tree competition, but somehow afford it and find the time to be a full-time mom. At the end of the competition, I offered to buy her unique Japanese throwline cube for a decent amount of money to maybe help offset the cost. She accepted it, but she wouldn't let me have the throw cube because of its condition. Months later, I received a package from Japan with some treats and tea and this brand new throw cube, complete with a message and a picture of her family. I saw, when I was here in the Albuquerque 2023, I saw Brick Riley, again, and hometown favorite Chad Delzell win the Spirit of the Competition award, which was so well deserved for them. And Anissa, my friend, was on the podium again. And I watched some guy named Barton drink another beer out of his shoe. And Jo Hedger wear the crown once again. Next, we had the ITCC in Savannah, Georgia last year. And I got to see my friend Steph Littenberg, Colorado climber Ashley Fox, in her very first ITCC ever. And I got to work with Danae and her husband, Adam Jackson, who led our throwline team. I got to watch Steve Dryfoot start her 2-year reign as champion. And I met a competitor from Oklahoma named Brady Paselk. He turned out to be one of my favorite new people at the competition. His spirit was amazing. And 9 months later, in the middle of nowhere, deep in the Colorado mountains, my family and I were less than 500 feet from the summit of a 14,000-foot mountain when I spied a group of fellow hikers who were just coming down from the summit. One of them was wearing an orange tree buff, which piqued my interest, and as we got closer, Brady's broad smile hit me again, and it was the warmth of seeing an old friend who he hadn't seen for a while, and he was yet a new friend. Hugs and laughter abound when that happens, and that included Jesse Taylor, also an ITCC alum. And had I not gone to that ITCC, these guys would merely be hikers along the way who I would have said hi to with a smile, but nothing else. Instead, I was able to have a heart-warming reunion on the side of a mountain. So that leaves me now where I am. I feel whole again. I smile more. I feel refreshed and happy after a good cry. And believe me, there's no sadness behind these tears, maybe for Roxy. Only feelings of connection. My confidence has returned. At work, I climb every week with my crew, Devin and Allie. She's going to be back at work on our return from this trip after having her first baby, adorable little Riker, as well as a cast of characters who contract climb for me. I just did my 14th Rocky Mountain Chapter Tree Climbing Championship, and for the first time ever, I used these healed legs to propel me to my first sub 30 seconds in the ascent event. That might be an embarrassing slow time for some of you, but at 55 years old, it was the fastest I've ever raced up a tree, and I was pretty proud of that. I make sure that I spend a lot of time with my family, volunteering for their activities and community activities and being a dad. I just spent 2 fantastic weeks with my amazing wife in Ireland and Scotland, celebrating our 20th anniversary. But I've also made time when I was there to see this character. He's an old tree friend named Dave in an Irish pub. I helped proofread my daughter's very first college application essay, and I was at the side of the pool last summer cheering on my son as he and his friends set the pool record for their 400 freestyle relay. Life is good, and there are struggles, but with the help of special connections and special friends, we can get through them. So to all of you who have helped me through those struggles and brought me back to where I am today, I simply and very humbly say, stand clear and thank you. Questions? Thank you. We'll talk about the ketamine over there.
Do we have time for questions? Do we have time for questions, and do we have any questions other than about the ketamine? So, on behalf of the Board of Think Trees, on behalf of everyone in the audience and everyone in the tree community, and in the spirit of honoring the amazing person that you are, we'd like to present you with your tree cookie from Think Trees, New Mexico. We do have time for questions. Do we have questions? Yeah. You're not done yet, Patrick.
Patrick, I just want to thank you for sharing, man. I'm extremely happy to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I think we all second that. First, it's inspiring. Thank you. I was moved. I'm somebody that has a lifelong trauma experience. I was diagnosed with CPTSD, and I think people in this industry gravitate to this industry because we see that it is healing. And to see you standing there today and to hear that you taught on the tree you fell from is so inspiring. And I think we're all just grateful you're here. We're grateful to see your tears because it mattered. And that's why we, but thank you, and wow, big thumbs up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As a side note, I've been thrilled that Think Trees has had me so many times here. I got to do a gear check talk. I get to do a climbing talk. I did an anchor talk. I've climbed that tree out front a couple of times now. We had a great crowd yesterday who were out there. And when I say I'm back, I mean, I'm skiing double black diamonds again. So to be able to get the opportunity from Think Trees to come down here year after year and do that has been wonderful, and I absolutely thank you all for that too.
Great. Yeah, we have a question from online. Someone asks, what resources do you recommend for more info on aerial tree rescue, books, etc.?
So there are aerial rescue books out there. I would encourage everybody to get a hold of the ISA, the Rocky Mountain chapter, isarmc.org, and push aerial rescue and first aid trainings down here. I'm from Denver. We have a jillion climbers out there, and it's really easy for us to put clinics on up there. But as I look out at how many people raised their hands saying that they were climbers, you all need this training too. We're the ISA, and it is Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, and we need to come down here. I've been on the board. I can make stuff like that happen. So if you get organized, or even if you're not organized, get a hold of isarmc.org and say, we want this down in New Mexico. This is something that you should have. I want to have those tiers be transferred into training for people who will learn from what I did so that they don't have to repeat it. They can learn without that experience. And that's huge. So my answer to that would be get a hold of, you could talk with me afterward, you can go to the isarmc.org, but demand that. You're one of our 4 states in this chapter. You should have equal footing in there, and I would be thrilled to come down and teach an aerial rescue clinic. I would be thrilled to teach another climbing clinic. That's what I love doing, and I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, Patrick. Years ago, we had a fledgling New Mexico State tree climbing competition, and what we learned from it was that it was such a wonderful opportunity to get together and commiserate and communicate and develop a sense of community within there, within our arboricultural community. And I'm too old to do that again, and it fell by the wayside because not because we lacked support, but because we lacked people working to organize and do it. So if possible, I'd like to see Matt, our chapter representative, and Lizzie and Patrick from Denver come down and help really educate our climbers in current climbing techniques and tools and equipment. And we've got Vermeer and we've got Ask locally. We've got a lot of opportunities to really put something together for the local community. And we had great support from STIHL and from TTNM and from everybody. So we could do it. We could get it back together in there, and we can learn proper climbing and ultimately good aerial rescue. We did, I hosted Rocky Mountain chapter and aerial rescue at UNM campus in there back years and years ago. So we could do that, and it would be a really good thing for our community of arborists. If you're interested, Patrick is, Matt is going to raise his hand right there and tell you to come talk to him.
I've appreciated Matt stepping up in that role. Is Eric here today?
Mr. Bishop,
Eric Bishop?
where are you at, Eric? You're being called out.
Right there. I appreciated everything that you did in Albuquerque as well. Eric helped host a tree climbing get-together where a lot of us at the Albuquerque Rocky Mountain chapter competition came. We all got together, and that was really well attended. We had a ton of people who got together and exchanged ideas on climbing and techniques and gear and knowledge. So Eric, I absolutely appreciate you doing that, and thank you for being a part of this. He's been the New Mexico director as well.
All right. Well, thank you again, Patrick. You're a prince.